Hey, welcome back. And this is our last topic for unit number 2. We're talking about predictions from data. And this is where you're going to be taking the results from your project and you're going to be making some conclusions and predictions. So what's the goal today? I can make general predictions from data when presented in a graphical format. So we're going to take your surveys that you collect, you're going to sort and organize them. You're going to produce some graphical representations of the data. And from that, you can then draw some conclusions and so on and so forth. So I want to just go through an example with you and talk about it. So we collect data to help us, and maybe I'll just bring the screen down so you can see what we're talking here. We collect data to help mathematically predict outcomes or changes to the world around us. So what we do is we do our surveys, we do our research in order to help make predictions that are smart for whatever societal change is needed. To make predictions, we have to look at trends in the data. So we have people that go into statistics that analyze the data for us and tell us what trends emerge. What I want you to do, I want you to take simple investigations, and I want you to be able to identify a trend. So what is a trend? So a trend is a pattern that emerges from data that's collected and analyzed. Sometimes data we collect will have no trend at all, and that in itself is a trend. So you may be asking a question, how do you use your cell phone, for example, and you may be predicting that everyone uses it for texting, and in the end you find out that everyone uses it for all categories. So there's no trend there except the fact that everyone uses it for all categories. So sometimes when you can't find a trend, that is the trend that you're looking for, that there is no trend. And it's important that we use our problem-solving skill to find trends in the data. So sometimes you're going to have to do a little bit of searching when you want to find that trend. So I have one example. It's not exactly the same as what you're going to be dealing with, but it's similar. So the example I'm looking at, so up at the top of this page, what you've done, you collected data about an intersection near your house. So this is, you're looking at a traffic problem. Your family and neighbors, so you family, let's put an R on there. Your family and neighbors believe that it is a huge potential traffic problem. So analyze the data from the question below. So here we are. So over 4 weeks, so a whole month, you counted number of cars. So you counted how many cars come to this intersection every week. And then you found out how many made a left turn. Now, for people that haven't been on the road or haven't thought about this, when you have a car coming up to a light here, making a left turn, so I'll do it up here. So here's the intersection. So if you're making a left turn on this road, all right, what happens is when you want to make a left turn, you have to wait until the oncoming traffic, the green arrow, is clear. So if there's a bunch of cars coming through, then every car behind this car turning left has to sit and wait. And the problem escalates. It makes the traffic worse and worse. So that's kind of what they're analyzing, what they're looking at here. They're saying, hey, there's so many people making left turns, a problem's being created. So I've got some guiding questions, and these are kind of the guiding questions you're going to use when you are doing your own analysis. So for A part here, discuss what type of graph might best represent this data. So when you look at it, you're looking at week 1, number of left turns, week 2, week 3, week 4. You could use, we have a couple of options from our stuff, or from our lessons here. We talked about bar graphs. We can use pictographs. And we can use pie graphs or circle graphs. So those are the options that are available to us based on what we've done in this course. So there's A part. So B part. B part wants us to draw 2 graphs to represent the data. So I'm going to have to go to a new page for this. So I'm going to start with a bar graph to begin with. So with the bar graph, I am going to create bar graph here. So on this axis, I'm going to have number of cars or frequency. Across here, I'm going to have week number. And I had 4 weeks. So I had week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And when I look back at the data, my biggest number here, it goes all the way up to 484. So I got to make sure my y-axis goes up to at least 484. So I'm going to go, I'm just going to go make sure I go up to 500. So I'm going to go 100. And you're going to have graph paper, so yours is going to look 10 times better than mine. 300, 400, and 500. And I'm going to put a title on it, traffic, and left turns. So traffic and left turns. And we'll underline that. So here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a double bar graph, because on one side I'm going to show how many cars came along. So I'll show you what that's going to look like. So week 1, 395, so almost 400 cars came along in week 1. So 400 cars, just short of 400 cars came along. And in blue, I'm going to put how many made a left turn. So that's 110. So I'm going to put a little over 100 in blue. I'm going to put them side by side. So that's week 1. All right. Week 2, doing it in green, goes up to 281. So 281, I'm going to say is about there. So that's how many cars came along in week 2. I'm going to do all the week 1. So 484 is way up here. So you guys are going to have nice grid paper and rulers. Oops, to do this in. And then last one's 386, so just shy of 400. So about there. And we have that. Now I'm going to go back and do my left turns. So 65 at 131. 131. And the last one, almost 100. So there we go. All right, and then off the side here, you got to make a scale. So total cars. And in blue, cars turning left. So now it shows the reader how many cars came to the intersection and what proportion of them made a left turn. So it wants us to do 2 graphs to represent this. So I'm looking at my other graphs. I'm looking at pictograph or pie graphs. So when I'm trying to make a decision between the two, there's no right or wrong answer, because what you can do, if we go with a pictograph, all right, we can set it up very, very similar to how we did it here, and we could go with week number across here, total cars, and then you can set it up exact same way then. So total cars, and then in blue, do left turns. All right. A line across, and you got your 4 weeks to do. And on total cars, total cars, total cars. Pull around there. And then you can draw pictures of cars here. So the green, our little VW bug. Okay. I'm going to say that's equal to, and when I'm looking at my scale here, it's going to have to be an approximation because we're not going to keep it too accurate. So let's go with 25 cars. And my blue cars also going to be 25 cars. Put that on. That's what I thought. I'm just got to make a little bit of a change here. Okay, so now, cloner. And fix this up a little bit. Cloner. So the first category, total cars, almost went up to 400. So I've got every 4 makes 100. So there's 100, and I have to squash them in here. So there's 200. Didn't really plan out my scale overly well. 300. So there's the total cars that made a left turn, and it looks like just over 100 made a left. There is 75. So there's about how many cars made a left turn. So when you're dealing with numbers this big, it makes it a little bit more challenging because you gotta kind of play with the scale a little bit. So it's going to look a little bit funny. So I'm going to pause it. I'm going to finish this, and then we'll just talk about which one shows the data better. Okay, as you can see, the pictograph's done there, and it's not nearly as accurate as my bar graph because I picked 25 cars for each car, and you got to do an approximation as best you can here. So not the best graph, all right. I'm going to put the not the best to create. Because it's time consuming, but visual impact, I find the one that has, that has the cars, the pictograph, it has more visual impact, so it depends what you're going for. The top one's more the traditional, this is what you'll see in a newspaper, but the pictograph does have its place in its moments, so either one would be correct. I'm going to answer the rest of the questions in the next segment.